thank you for joining our event, Carbon Reduction Initiatives at Lakehead University. My name is Lita McKellar. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator at Lakehead University. I work on helping Lakehead enhance its sustainability profile. Some of my priorities include implementing Lakehead's inaugural sustainability plan. And lately I've been helping to coordinate Lakehead's Year of Climate Action with some other wonderful faculty, staff, and students. So this event today is in support of the Year of Climate Action. We thought it would be really great to present to our community some of the energy saving and sustainability projects that the university's been up to for a while, and no one knows better what those are than Hugh Briggs, our Director of Physical Plant. So I would also like to recognize that in Thunder Bay, we're on the traditional lands of Fort William First Nation, signatory to the Robinson Superior Treaty of 1850. And in Orillia, Lakehead University resides on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe people and the Rama First Nation. The Anishinaabe called the areas now known as Thunder Bay and Orillia for thousands of years before they were settled by Europeans and continue to be active leaders in their territory. I just wanted to make a note on land acknowledgements that they honor and recognize the historical and current presence of Indigenous peoples and their rights to and relationship with the land that non-Indigenous people now call home. But they're more than statements. They call for the ongoing recognition of the protocols and processes of local Indigenous peoples, and like other acts of reconciliation, they really must be followed with continued and concrete, meaningful actions. So we know that Indigenous communities are least responsible for global carbon emissions and climate change, yet among the most vulnerable to climate impacts, which is really a justice issue. A recent report, which if you haven't seen, you can check it out, by the Indigenous Environmental Network and Oil Change International, stated that over the last 3 decades, Indigenous peoples have advanced and advocated for some of the strongest climate policies and actions rooted in their rights, language, culture, and identities. And for example, I like to share this example. Indigenous resistance has stopped or delayed the equivalent of 25% of annual US, Canadian greenhouse gas emissions, which is really significant, and their work has stalled many projects that could have accelerated emissions. So I extend my gratitude for this work. In addition, according to the World Bank, Indigenous peoples also protect 80% of the world's remaining biodiversity, another huge accomplishment. So perhaps accomplishment isn't the best way to put it, but I certainly honor that. I see climate change as a social and environmental justice issue, yet Indigenous peoples continue to be sidelined from national and international climate policy discussion. And I think it's clear that we can't have climate justice without Indigenous peoples being at the table, leading discussions on climate policy. And I think we're all called the work of non-Indigenous people to, and particularly settlers, to advocate for this. There's a lot of Indigenous authored resources that you can check out to learn more about climate justice in particular, which is such an important piece of climate action. So I encourage you to seek them out if you haven't, and Indigenous Climate Action Network is one of those. I'll put the link in the chat after to that resource. Climate justice is an important part of climate action and the Year of Climate Action. And so I would just like to share my screen quickly to tell you a little bit more about the Year of Climate Action before I hand it over to our presenter, Hugh Briggs. So the Year of Climate Action, hopefully you know about it already. If you don't, Lakehead declared 2021-2022 school year the Year of Climate Action, or as we refer to it, YOCA, not yoga. And why was the Year of Climate Action this year? Well, for example, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change reports have been telling us that we have a very critical window of opportunity to act on climate change. And this is sort of the university's next step in rising to this call. So what is the Year of Climate Action about? It's about creating the possibility for change that's amplified when we work together across departments and units. It's really about like a university-wide effort to respond to climate change. It's also about building leadership roles and relationships needed to sustain climate action. So yes, there's a finite time period to the year of climate action, but it's really only a foundational block for moving forward. And so it's really kind of asked the university, it's sort of an invitation for each of us to reflect on how does our work or how do our studies connect to climate action? How can they initiate climate action? So we created it as a platform, and by we, I mean the university and so many staff, faculty, students, and senior admin who've been involved, to encourage everyone to listen, learn, share, but really most importantly to act on climate change, really the action piece we wanted to emphasize. And I'll just mention that an important part of the Year of Climate Action is also recognizing the causes and consequences of climate change. We have a coordinating committee composed of faculty, staff, and students, and they're doing such a wonderful job, very dedicated. And there's been, up until now, we started in September, many departments and organizations and student groups and individuals who have organized events and initiatives and concrete climate actions for the Year of Climate Action. Let me advance here. So I just wanted to mention, yes, the action piece is important, and so aside from the events and the workshops we've been running, we've committed to 4 concrete climate actions. I know there's 5 here. That's just because the first one's the Year of Climate Action. So we committed to faculty and staff training on climate change, trying to get set up to allow for preferred parking and charging for electric vehicles, increasing the visibility of solar panels in the Thunder Bay campus, and internal research grants for climate change. So all of these were the coordinating committee and the university committed to working towards trying to realize these over the past year. And you may have participated in Teaching and Learning Week, which had lots of professional development for to encourage faculty to integrate climate change into their teaching. And Research and Innovation Week also had some wonderful events that showcase some of the research happening, as well as the Office of Research and Innovation launched the Yoka Research Awards, which awarded 7 faculty and student teams with $5,000 each to advance climate research that advances climate action. So that was really wonderful. And that's all I'll say for now, but I think he will touch on a little bit of this later. So I just wanted to clarify what I mean by climate action, because I don't know, I think the term gets tossed around and maybe it means something different to you than what it means to us. We're really approaching it broadly, and kind of as it's approached in the sustainability plan. So the way it's approached in the sustainability plan, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, is woven throughout the various goals. It's not an explicit item, climate action, here's what we're doing. It's really because climate action is everything, related to everything, and climate change impacts everything. So too does climate action sort of come in underneath all these other different folds. But in general, climate action is action aimed at reducing greenhouse gases, so mitigation, climate adaptation, such as low impact development or stormwater management infrastructures, resilience building, education and awareness building, or raising, and activism. We could have a much bigger discussion on what all those mean and what climate action is, but for the sake of time today, I'll leave it at that. If you have questions at the end, we could always talk about it too. So I wanted to give you a snapshot of some of the things that have happened this year so far, and this is not extensive, there's more than this, but like I mentioned, the Yoka Research Awards, Fossil Free Lakehead and LUSU held an event to commemorate the 1-year anniversary of Lakehead's commitment to divest from fossil fuels. The Teaching and Learning Week, which I mentioned, we have a virtual climate action book display and research guide for climate action that the library developed. We had an electric vehicle show, which is in partnership with a bunch of organizations, including the Electric Vehicle Association of Northern Ontario. We had over 200 people attend that to learn about EVs in Northern Ontario, which was really great. The English department is still hosting an ongoing climate action book club. Sustainable Aurelia's Youth Council is organizing a youth sustainability summit, which Lakehead has partnered on and is hosting. We had a climate art exhibition in collaboration with the Lakehead Education Research Galleries, Research and Innovation Week just had a wonderful set of events, and there's a lot more than this. I just wanted to provide a quick overview of some of the great things that have happened already. So YOCA, the Year of Climate Action, we framed it in a way that we wanted it to connect it to the sustainability plan, which has 4 pillars. I'm sorry this says 111. When I transferred this from Google presentation to PowerPoint, the formatting obviously got messed up. Anyways, there's 4 pillars in the sustainability plan: academics, operations, engagement, and planning and administration. And so we kind of framed the Year of Climate Action to fit underneath that umbrella and make sure that it also is bolstering and enhancing this plan, which our community, our Lakehead community and beyond put together, and we want to honor that work as well. There is, in the operations section of the sustainability plan, probably has the most relevance to our discussion today. And many of the actions there, like I said, do further climate action. And I guess I'll just say in terms of the plan, how it was developed. I'm not gonna get too much into this, but the university has a Sustainability Stewardship Council, which has staff, faculty, students, and community members. And they all worked together to put this plan in motion. There's 4 working groups, which were actually created under these 4 pillars that helped to develop and implement relevant portions of the plan. And that was brought to our Sustainability Executive Advisory Council for discussion and refinement. And so essentially, I guess I just want to say the process for putting this plan together was participatory and democratic. And it is modeled off of the Sustainability Tracking, Assessment, and Rating System, which was developed by the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education. So that's an international peer-reviewed voluntary and public self-reporting framework that we participated in 2014 and really laid the groundwork for creating this plan. I just wanted to highlight a couple of areas in the plan, which are very much in line with Hugh Briggs' line of work. And so some of the actions in the sustainability plan include looking at our water, so implementing policies and programs to reduce rainwater and runoff and resultant water pollution. Also transportation, so supporting sustainable transportation systems, including cycling infrastructure, electric vehicles, carpool software, and more. In terms of energy, reducing our building energy use and supporting renewable energy sources. I have a picture of the PV solar arrays on the UC cafeteria. And then waste, increasing diversion of materials from landfills and conserving resources. And I've just recently been having some conversations with our conference and dining services about really trying to reduce our plastic use in the cafeterias. So I just wanted to say Lakehead has been implementing sustainability related projects for a long time, whether through faculty research, student research, administration staff. Of course, there's still so much more we can do, but I thought it was wonderful to invite Hugh here today to share with us a little bit about what Physical Plant has done and go a little bit behind the scenes, I guess, because I think that Physical Plant is doing all sorts of work that not necessarily everybody knows about. Oh, am I still with you folks?
Yep.
Okay, my screen is frozen, so I'm back. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Hugh Briggs, who's Director of Physical Plant. I have the pleasure of working with Hugh on a variety of sustainability related topics at Lakehead. And while the word sustainability may not directly appear in Hugh's job title, I know he's been sometimes a silent champion of sustainability initiatives at the university for the past 3 decades. And his primary role is to manage the facility and grounds programs of the university, like that I said, intersect with multiple sustainability areas such as grounds, water, energy, waste, and yes, even at times academics. So he's full of institutional memory. And I know firsthand he has implemented many large energy saving projects on campus, which I think sometimes remain largely unknown to the average campus dweller. So I'm so excited to have him here today to speak with us and share some of the initiatives that he's been working on and to provide a snapshot of how Physical Plant is imagining future areas. He is also the past president of Ontario Association of Physical Plant Administrators, known as OAPA, and he's been a member of our Sustainability Stewardship Council, which I mentioned, since 2016. So I'm really pleased to have you here today, and I'll pass it over to you, Hugh.
Thank you, Lita. I'll just queue up my my presentation here, and I'm sure that everybody can see this now. So thank you, Lita, and welcome to everybody. It's good to be here and be able to talk about what Lakehead has done. I'll give you a little bit more background on myself. I started at Lakehead in March of 1990, so this is an anniversary month for me. I started as a construction supervisor, building the regional center and the outpost. And then from there, went to be the energy manager, helping us with managing energy. From there, went to be a supervisor of grounds, shipping, and housekeeping, and then back to being an energy manager. And from there, the directorship opened up 14 years ago. And so I've been the director at Lakehead for 14 years. So, and Lita had a great poster for this event, so I chose to use it as my lead-off slide, as you can see here. And this highlights the first item that I'm going to talk about at Lakehead. So I'll go through the agenda here. So I want to talk about what we've achieved. So like our history a little bit. So some energy saving projects, some policies, some lead achievements. Talk about the future a little bit, about things that are immediate future and then longer term future. So some EV charging, campus master plan, future carbon costs. And that's an interesting one that I'll raise for folks, as well as some of the concepts and ideas that we are considering to bring us forward as we go. All right. I think one of Lakehead's biggest achievements was this project that we undertook now 18 years ago, where we converted our campus from steam to hot water. And just I'll talk about this for a little bit here. The big things here, we reduced our natural gas consumption by 45%, our electricity consumption and demand by 20 to 22%. And we've been able to maintain those savings for the last 18 years. And I say that because a lot of times a project will happen and you save some energy, but then scope creep happens and things happen and you lose those savings. Well, we've been able to maintain those savings. This was a partnership with Johnson Controls. This was an extensive project. It was over $22 million worth of work that was done, and included building the overpass on our ring road, which had absolutely no energy savings at all, but was something that our former president had wanted to help us with traffic flow. So we had the money, so we did it. Part of this program are these energy savings reports, which are given to me quarterly, and then and there's an annual report at the end. So this is the most recent one, and I'd just like to go through the environmental impact on this. I know there's a lot of information here, and you probably can't see it all that well, but I'll highlight a couple of things here. From year one, we started to have savings of greenhouse gases, and the emission savings on average are almost 10,000 kilograms of CO2 every year. So, they like to put this, how many vehicles, and there's all that kind of stuff. So this is like removing 3,000 vehicles a year. So this is quite an achievement that Lakehead has had. And as you can see here, the savings and the achievements are still there and continue past year 17. And at any time, if anybody has any questions, just put up your hand and I'll endeavor to answer your questions or see them. And if Lita can help me out on that, that's great too. All right. I'd like to just talk about what it looked like before at Lakehead. So this is a couple of shots of our powerhouse before we did this renovation. So on the left is the old steam boilers. These were vintage late 60s to early 70s, high pressure steam boilers. produced 150 pounds steam, and pushed it all the way over to the field house, and brought it back. And on the right are our old chillers. These chillers ran R11, which is, you might remember, was one of the banned refrigerants from the Montreal Protocol. So we had to change those out as well as part of this initiative. Next slide here is us showing bringing the boilers, the new boilers, putting them into the powerhouse. So this slide, I like the one on the right. It's like the three trains, like the three cars in the train moving three big boilers into the powerhouse. It was a big job. This change from steam to hot water was taken over a year to complete, and there were no impacts to the academic calendar at all. These boilers run hot water, produce hot water at 185 to 190 degrees Fahrenheit at approximately 30 pounds, 35 pounds gauge pressure. When it's really cold outside, we run these units through what we call a condensing heat recovery unit. When I say really cold, I mean minus 20 Celsius or below. And when it's that cold out, we can divert the flue gas into this unit and preheat all of the combustion air and air for the powerhouse, and preheat the Centennial building, and provide heat for our main kitchen fan in our cafeteria. So that's a lot of free heat that comes to us. And this winter, as we all know, there was some significant cold that we managed to make use of that unit a lot. The project also required a new distribution system because we were using steam and we went to hot water. So here's a couple of shots. Lakehead has the advantage of having quite an extensive tunnel system. Most of them are service tunnels. Some of them are pedestrian tunnels. We're all familiar with the tunnel that goes from the University Center over to the library to the Ryan building. Well, underneath that tunnel are some fiberglass pipes that run the new the hot water system. We had to do some underground work, as you can see on the other two photographs, and all of these pipes were insulated and boxed in styrofoam. Little fact on this, why we chose fiberglass. When we did this project, there was a huge increase in the price of steel. China was buying up all the scrap metal, and there was a huge spike in the price of steel. So it was more economical for us to use fiberglass. Plus, one of the workers could pick up and basically carry one of these pipes on their shoulder. Couldn't do that with a 20-foot length of steel pipe. So it was a lot easier in that respect. Now, the tail of the tape. So the Ministry of Energy has required the universities and also all the greater public sector to report greenhouse gas emissions since 2013, as is noted on this slide. We also have to develop a 5-year conservation and demand management plan and post it on the website and update it every 5 years. So we've been doing this, and this data is publicly accessible. There's the URL for it. And the next slide will show you how Lakehead has been doing over the last little while. So we've been consistently one of the lowest energy intensive campuses in Ontario using weather normalized data. And for example, I've got up here the most recent data, which is from 2019. And you might ask, why is that the most recent data? They're always a couple of years behind. So by July of this year, we will have to put in the data from 2020. That's just the way the government works. So Lakehead's Thunder Bay campus and Aurelia campus at 5 equivalent watt hours per heating degree day per square foot. So what that does is it gives you a measure that is normalized for the weather. So this is comparable to the energy use in Windsor, which you all understand is in the banana belt of our province. But they're a very energy intensive university. I don't understand why. I understand that, it makes sense with Queens, Waterloo, and U of T St. George to be more than Lakehead. They're running high pressure steam plants. They're not running hot water plants like we are. They're looking for, there's lots of opportunities for those other universities. So what this means is that we've achieved great goals already, great strides in energy reduction and greenhouse gas reductions. One of the other recent projects that we were able to participate in was the Ontario government had the greenhouse gas reduction program a few years back. So they rolled the program out in the summer and fall of 2017. We had agreements signed in March of 2018, and we completed the work by March of 2019. So within a year, we did a lot of work on our campus. These programs were from the former government, not the current government, and Lakehead was very successful in this program. Part of some of the requirements were alignments with our sustainability plan. You know, we had to fit into a low carbon campus. It creates a pathway for greenhouse gas reductions. And it was to try and achieve 37% by 2030 and 80% by 2050 below 1990 levels. So on that point, I'd like to tell you right now, Lakehead has beaten our 2030 goal already. We have achieved greater than 37% reduction, mainly in part to our move from steam to hot water. So we've done I'll call it, with air quotes, the easy stuff, you know? Yeah, $22 million worth of easy stuff, but it's still, now we've got the hard part is to get to the next part. There are co-benefits are required on these initiatives as well. And this was primarily directed at scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. So there are three types of emissions that are tracked: scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. And scope 3 are the emissions that I used, for example, to get from my home to work this morning when I drove my hybrid car. That is a scope 3 emissions. If one of the faculty members hopped on a plane and went to, well, I don't know, Australia, well, there's another example of scope 3 emissions that are directly related to the universities. Those are not included in these reductions, and they're harder to capture and also harder to reduce because how do you get to Australia without flying, or that it makes it difficult. So what did we do here? Well, we were the lucky recipients of two different granting schemes. One was for cap and trade non-participants. This grant was given to the smaller universities because we weren't participants in the cap and trade, nor are we our participants in the I forget what the term is now, but we don't produce enough greenhouse gases to be what's called a participant in the market. And so what the Ontario government did is they allocated $22 million to help support offsets. And these were for lighting, HVAC, building envelopes, and other items. So what did Lakehead do? Well, we put together a project to improve the efficiency of our Boralaskan building. We spent over $2.8 million on this project. We improved the lighting, HVAC, and controls. We put in new boilers and domestic hot water, as well as the associated pumps, changed out the air handler. And on the building envelope, we re-roofed a portion of the roof with some higher insulation values on a new roof. And what did this achieve? Well, it achieved a reduction of 203 megatons of carbon per year. We had anticipated that this project would achieve about 180. So it actually achieved more than what we had hoped for, which is a good thing. It's always good to overachieve on a project. The next grant that we were lucky to participate or to achieve or to receive was the innovation grant. This was a competitive process. So we competed against every other university in Ontario. And I'm happy to say that Lakehead was one of the only small universities, or the only smaller university to get a grant through this process. U of T got monies, as did Queens and Guelph. Can't remember all of them, but and I did also participate in the vetting of these and the ranking of these projects. So it was quite interesting to see the soup to nuts sort of ideas that folks had and how they came together. So what did Lakehead do? Well, we concentrated on our kitchen in our commercial kitchen in the cafeteria area. We put in some heat recovery, replaced steam appliances with gas, electric, put in LED lighting, domestic hot water, and the roof-mounted photovoltaic cells, as Lita has pointed out, and re-roofed a portion of the building underneath those photovoltaic systems. So this project achieved 881 megatons of equivalent carbon per year, and this again overachieved. I think we were targeting about 600 or less on this one. Interesting little sidebar on this project. The last couple of years with the pandemic have caused us some issues, because using the heat recovery to do this, with the kitchen not running at full bore, it was hard to recover heat that wasn't there. So we've learned a few things, but now that we've got more students back on campus and our cafeteria kitchen working, it's a lot better. So I'll go through some pictures of what we did on this project, on these projects as well. So this is a couple of photographs of what the Boralaskan mechanical room looks like. Sorry, yeah, Boralaskan Education Building. On the right are the two old Scotch Marine boilers, steam boilers that came out. And there was, on the left is some pumps that went in or came out of there. And the next photograph here is what it looks like on the left, what it looks like now. Cleaned it up, painted the floor, put in 3 hot water condensing boilers that we've had great success with these units. We have these same PK boilers in our Avila Center here, as well as our PACI, the law school, also has these boilers. They're working very, very well. On the right is the new air handlers to supply ventilation to parts of the Boralaskan. Another couple of shots of the mechanical room. On the right are the instantaneous gas hot water heaters to supply hot water on demand as needed in the washrooms and change room areas of the Boralaskan. It's a good way to save energy, and you only need to run the gas when you're using hot water. The kitchen project is a little less glamorous with photographs. This is on the left is a picture of one of the chillers in one of the walk-in coolers or freezers that we changed out to a high efficiency unit. And then on the right is the photograph of the photovoltaic array on top of the University Center cafeteria. Since this unit has been in production, we've produced, I think it's about 90 megawatts of power through its life since 2018. So it's just slowly doing its thing. It didn't like this week when it got covered with snow, and the production was actually 0 when it gets covered with snow. So we have to go and brush the snow off the arrays. We also installed a lot of instantaneous hot water heaters in the cafeteria to supply their need. And you can see 5 of them in a row here, as well as new soup kettles in the cafeteria itself. And this past summer, we have recently put the rest of what I'll call the old University Center, so the bookstore, the study, the washrooms across from security, on this hot water system that's over here, and have further made this system work a little harder and we'll be saving a little bit more energy on that. I don't have numbers on that, but I know that it's helping us as well. Another couple of shots in that mechanical room down below the cafeteria. The new water line was replaced in there, and as well as a new MCC motor control center for the electrical. And on the floor, in that kind of light brown on the right, those are some of the heat recovery units for the kitchen walk-in coolers that we are using. So on to policies. It's another initiative that Lakehead has. We have a sustainability policy, and this was created many years ago at the start of the Aurelia campus with the hope that it would garner us some additional funding from government agencies. And it hasn't really done that. What it has done is it's created some difficulties for Lakehead operationally, and I believe needs to be updated and reviewed. And a couple of the folks on this call have participated in some discussions on this policy to help review it. And it also bridges into the next policy, which is carbon neutrality. We currently don't have one on carbon neutrality, but I believe that it is what we should do. And later slides in my show here will illustrate some of the reasons why we should go here and what are the good things for that. But those are policies that we're working on and or updating. Achievements, LEED achievements. Well, in Aurelia, we have 3 buildings that all achieved various LEED achievements. The academic building was the first building to be constructed, and it achieved platinum. The residents also achieved platinum. The cafeteria, unfortunately, the best we could do for that was silver. And the letters to the right of it are part of the telling tale about LEED, is it's constantly changing and being updated and amending, and it makes it more and more difficult and restrictive, I think, to actually achieve some of these goals. In Thunder Bay, we have 2 projects, the Wolf Den, which was just recently constructed, and it has achieved a LEED Silver, and that was on version 4. And Cases is still outstanding. We're targeting LEED Gold under an older version of LEED. And those are some of the issues. One of the issues that I have with LEED is the ability to buy points. I'll throw it out there now that you can buy points by buying credits for renewable fuels that you don't necessarily ever hit your burner tip. So it's just it's a bit of a bad taste in my mouth. I like to see things that actually improve the efficiency of the building and make it a better building. I think that's a better thing for a facility as it's such. Other things in the future here, we have EV charging stations. Well, I'd like to say we're 3rd time lucky here at Lakehead. We had been awarded with the previous government EV charging stations for both campuses. But unfortunately, the government changed, and because we hadn't issued a purchase order to anybody at that point, because we'd only just been made aware of it, the program was canceled. So there was a round of funding opportunity with the federal government that we applied for both campuses, and we were notified just prior to Christmas that we were unsuccessful. But parallel to that federal program, the Economic Development Corporation in Thunder Bay ran a program specifically designed for Thunder Bay called Plug-in Thunder Bay. And we applied for that, basically taking our federal program and just pulling out the Thunder Bay campus section of it and putting that forward. We received our notice of award in February, and we're still working through the contribution agreement and getting it all through legal and all the rest of the stuff. So it's not 100% official yet. I can't start spending any money until the contribution agreement is signed, but our plan is to install 8 dual level 2 charging stations on campus. So this will mean 16 vehicles can be charged at the same time on our campus. One of the side benefits of this, I think, to make it easier for Lakehead to do something like this is many of you will know that Lakehead has receptacles in all our parking lots for plugging in block heaters. And recently, through deferred maintenance, that whole distribution system has failed on us. However, the panels out in those shacks that you see in the parking lots are still there, and we've got lots of distribution to those, lots of power to those units. So we're making use of that power that would have gone to plugging in block heaters that people aren't using now anyway, and we're putting it for EV charging. So look for that this summer. I hope to be able to. Well, we have to be able to get this done, right, Lita?
Absolutely. Looking forward to it too.
Yes. So on other future endeavors here at Lakehead, we're also in a campus master plan process. So as part of the 2018-2013 strategic plan under capacity development, one of the 5 pillars, was the operationalization of a multi-year facilities master plan. And right now we have tendered it, and we're awaiting award to our consultant on this. So how does this relate to carbon neutrality or carbon reduction or sustainability? This statement here, holistic and integrated approach incorporating connected green space networks, infrastructure, buildings, active transportation, parking demand management, resource conservation, and sustainable infrastructure planning is a direct quote from the successful proponents' proposal to us. So this is how I believe that we are going to be able to use this to help us plan our campus, both in Thunder Bay and in Orillia, for the future. We have a lot of good green space, and we have some existing infrastructure. And how do we all make that work in a sustainable way? And active transportation is going to play an important role on that. And on that as a sidebar, many of you will have seen in the recent news, the city of Thunder Bay is putting in an application for funding to expand their active transportation network trails. And they've come to Lakehead, and we've agreed and worked with them to create a new bridge crossing of the McIntyre River, a little downstream from where the existing footbridge is now. It's the location of where there was a bridge. I believe it was probably in the 50s, or I don't think it was there in the 60s, but it might have been in the 50s or 40s when that was all that was farmland. And the city wants to reuse the bridge girders that they took out of the Edward Street Bridge, which is another good adaptive reuse of materials, all that embedded carbon, reusing it, and increase the active transportation. This trail will connect up to George Burke Park, going through the hospital area. So it's a good north-south work trail for Thunder Bay. Future carbon costs. So we've done some estimating on what our future carbon costs, and this ties back to my earlier statement about should we look at carbon neutrality or what should we look at? The federal government has mandated the carbon charge rates will increase over the next few years, and between January 21 to December of 2030, the rate is going to go from $1.58 a gigajoule, which is a measure of energy, to almost $9 a GJ. So right now our costs are just under $300,000 annually, and that's going to rise to just under $1 million annually. And that's based on a campus that doesn't grow, stays the same, is the way we are right now. So there's a good financial reason why we need to do something. Because if we don't do something, we're going to be spending by 2030 an extra $1 million a year. So it is one of the real drivers on this. Not only, should we do this, it's good for the planet, it also helps the bottom line. Right. So ideas and concepts for the 21st century, other things that we've looked at. We've looked at renewable natural gas. So right now, Enbridge is our gas distributor here in the province of Ontario, has what they call renewable natural gas. It's available to us, but it's 5 times the cost of conventional gas. So Lakehead spends about $1 million a year on natural gas. So again, that's a huge premium to pay for renewable natural gas. And what is this? It's gas that's produced from biomass from other embedded sources in around here. There is a producer in Thunder Bay, the city of Thunder Bay, out at the John Street landfill site, captures the methane from the landfill and cleans it and uses that to produce power. So that's what's there. They have there. Other ideas that we've been looking at: decarbonization, so biomass. One of in the greenhouse gas funding projects that the province had earlier, there was another program that didn't go ahead, which was a multi-year program. And as that, we had a preliminary design for a biomass plant to provide heat to our athletics complex, which included the Saunders, the hangar, and the Wolf Den. And I noticed I spelled Saunders incorrectly, so bad on me. Thunder Bay is uniquely situated because we are next to a very large, underutilized biomass supply. And I know there's arguments plus and minus for using biomass, but one of the things that could be done is when the trees are harvested, the best ones are used for saw logs, and then the other ones go to pulp, and then what's left could be chipped and used as fuel, and that's one of the things that we had looked at here. Confederation College, our neighbor just to the south of us here, has a small biomass plant that's been running for many years now that supplies heat to one of their buildings. They get their chips locally through the urban forest. So there is wood supply. And on biomass, I know at least one other university had looked at biomass for one of their campuses, and would like to go forward on that. However, they do need some incentive money on that. So it is something that's out there. Another thing that we've looked at is, okay, if we went off natural gas and went straight to electricity, what would that mean to Lakehead? Well, we'd have to increase power by 1.5 times. So we'd go from about 25,000 megawatt hours annually to about just over 62,000 megawatts of annual use. And with 1.5 times also means 1.5 times the cost. So this would be extremely expensive. As I mentioned, we spend about $1 million a year on natural gas. We spend about $2 million a year or so on power. So our power bill would increase significantly. We have not done any engineering of this. We have not done discussions with Synergy North, our local distributing company here. This would require that, but at least we started to look at this. These are just ideas that we're faced with. Northwest Ontario has an abundance of clean energy with power, with hydraulic, and there are some biomass plants. The Atikokan plant is a biomass plant that is currently working. We're not the only university to start looking at this as well. University of Toronto has looked at this, for example, and U of T would require, I think, more power to do their whole campus than, I think the quote was that then Niagara Falls can produce. So it's a huge switch, and their big problem, if they wanted to do this, and the same with York, because York has actively looked at this, they don't have the distribution. There isn't the power available within the city to do that. Thunder Bay has some good distribution. And now, again, we'd have to discuss with Synergy North if we were increasing our power that much. But it's a way of looking at things, and all of this would be required if we went to carbon neutral, or how to get to carbon neutral. So these are some of the ideas that we've looked at. So that ends my presentation, and I see there's some things in the chat. I'm not sure if they're questions or what they are.
Looks like there's one question so far, but certainly, thank you so much for that presentation, Hugh. Very thorough look at all the initiatives, and really helpful for all of us to see. If anyone has questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. And I just wanted to mention, Hugh, I hope you don't mind, that it's Hugh's birthday today. So I'll just say happy birthday to Hugh with a little celebration. Thank you so much for putting this event on.
Thank you. Thank you. So Cynthia asked about if we want to install more solar panels on campus. I would like to, yes. The panels that we have on campus currently, that array that we have that you showed you the picture of, supplies 1% of our electrical need. So if we were to, and it covers a substantial amount of our roofs. What I don't want to do is well, I'd say but it is my opinion. I think that land shouldn't be covered with solar panels unless the land, it's okay to put them on rooftops, but when you start putting ground mounted PV panels around, you can't use that ground for anything else. All it is that. So that's one of the concerns that I have as fundamentally there. So, but I would like to, but there are no current plans at this time. Any other questions?
You can also raise it. Oh, go ahead. I was going to say, you can also raise your hand if you have a question. Go ahead, Paul.
Thanks. And thanks, Hugh. I found it totally fascinating to see some figures and to see some of your thinking around these things, because I teach about climate change education stuff here, and I'm a climate change activist. I want everybody to electrify and all of that stuff. But it's really helpful to see even figures like that 25,000 megawatt hours would go to 62,000 megawatt hours. That clearly there's no easy, there's no, let's just put up a bit of insulation here, or let's just change this thing out here. It is a massive multi-decade process. I guess my question would be, what do you think will happen in the federal and provincial policy environments in the next 10 and 15 years that will help Lakehead to do some of the bigger things we need to do? Like, clearly we don't have the money to do, a huge fuel switch on our own right now, but the cap and trade money helped do something great at the Borlaskin building. Is there something on the horizon, or is there something that we would need to be able to do some of these bigger moves?
Excellent question. And yes, well, you mentioned the cap and trade money. Well, that pot is growing, and the federal government has it right now. And there was an opportunity. The first call for proposals that I've seen was just out, and actually the proposals close next Friday. But it's open to everybody in Canada. So the private sector, the public sector, the broader public sector, everybody. So and it's a competition. So we'd be competing against those that have very deep pockets and can really design stuff. Plus you'd be competing against folks that have done or haven't done some projects like Lakehead has already done. Like when I said we did the easy stuff, it still cost a lot of money, but it was relatively easy to go from steam to hot water. That next bit is going to be harder to do. So that money is going out there. I understand there will be additional incentives. I think incentives help a lot. It is something that makes it easier. You rarely get dollars. You usually get 50-cent dollars or 30-cent dollars. What I mean by that is, you don't get a project fully funded. The advantage we had with that the greenhouse gas project money that we had, those were dollars. You know, the government gave us $2.8 million. We spent actually $3 million. We spent a little bit more, but we didn't have to match it, which was wonderful for somebody like Lakehead. Some other universities took their money and they matched it. So but they had the abilities to do that. So I think we need to do more of that. I think incentives are really helpful. They're not the only answer, but it's clear the increasing cost of carbon will make it more economical to switch, to do something different. On that, I just want to mention, you know, you've heard, at least I've heard, caught in the news recently, you know, everybody's talking about heat pumps. Let's put in heat pumps. You know, we need heat pumps. They're the answer. Lakehead's had heat pumps for 25 years. We've got 2 buildings on the Thunder Bay campus, the 1294 Balmoral, the Alumni House, which 3 floors are heated with heat pumps, and Cases, the original forest biology side of it, and Cases, the new part of it, is all heated with heat pumps. The Aurelia academic building is heated with heat pumps. So it is a technology that we're using already here. But you do need to add a little bit of heat in the wintertime when it's really cold, because you can't get everything out of the heat pump as well. So does that help you with your question? Okay. I see another hand up, and then I'll get to the question in the chat there. Go ahead.
Are you, can I go?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hi, Hugh. I'm Ricky. We emailed a few times back and forth, but never met in person. I was working with Lita and Dr. Lindsay Galway on the Climate Action Park and some of that work, and helped develop a stormwater tour for campus. And I did a little pilot of that tour back in September, and it was really interesting. My background's in forestry. I've worked a lot in urban forestry. There's a lot of discussion of green infrastructure in municipalities in a lot of places, and Lakehead as well, like you mentioned some of that work. And one thing that I noticed doing that tour is it sort of highlighted the difficulty from an operations perspective of managing and maintaining green infrastructure versus gray infrastructure, because some of those areas are, you know, could be in better shape, or, you know, there are challenges associated with doing that and learning about how to do it properly, because there's soil constraints, there's lights, there's climate conditions, there's maintenance, there's all these things that factor into it. So I guess my question is, and I think there's a lot more opportunity on the Lakehead campus to do more of that work, and some of that will hopefully happen through that Climate Action Park. So my question to you as an operations manager is, how do you see that shift from, say, you know, typical lawn mowing and grounds maintenance happening from that traditional model into a more bit of a complicated model where you actually have to manage little mini ecosystems on campus, or even, you know, strategic use of vegetation to help with the climate targets, like trees planted to help conserve heat and air conditioning and sort of that kind of thing. Is there any thinking going on around that?
Yes, that is one of our huge challenges, and I think all the other ones, well, everything can be solved with time and money, and given enough time and enough money, you know, I can do almost anything. But I think the big one for Lakehead will be the labor side of that. It is always harder to get more staff to do more grounds work, more intensive grounds work. Whereas, you know, a grounds worker on a riding lawnmower can cut a lot of grass in a day, but, you know, to weed a garden is labor intensive. So I think we've got to start, and we have started, to develop some partnerships and get others involved with things, because there's only so much that we can do with our existing staff. I think once the critical mass is there, though, I think that we need to encourage you know, potentially some more people to help maintain this properly, and I think that's our biggest challenge, is that. So you know, sustainability in long-term planning for making something so it's still there 5 years, 10 years down the road is always a challenge. I've been at Lakehead long enough to know that there's been lots of student-led initiatives. Oh, we want to plant a garden here. We want to do this. And, you know, wholly supportive of it. But what happens when that student graduates? You know, like, or that group of students graduate? We need to somehow develop a sustainability plan or a succession plan on that sort of thing. So those are some of the challenges.
Yeah, and I think it's always harder to get those operating funds, right? So that's definitely a challenge.
Okay, thank you. Question on the in the chat here. Do we know where the charging stations will be located on campus? Yes, we do. Okay, so I don't know how familiar you are with our campus, but if I said the white shack and the brown shack, would that mean anything to anybody? Probably not. So near the library and the Ryan building is a white shack. And that's a electrical distribution point on our campus. We're going to locate some near there, and also the brown shack, which is the parking lot that's over towards ATAC and closer to the overpass. There's a brown shack there. That's near those two locations will be the locations that we will putting these charging stations in. I hope that answers your question there. And anything else here? Operating funds are always, well, I don't know. Capital investments, it's hard to get capital money too. I will say that too. It's hard to get capital, but it is more difficult to get operating. Okay. Is there, Lita, are there things in there that I missed?
Looks like that's all the questions. We are over time, so I'm sure folks have to get going unless you have time to answer one more question. If there is another question.
I've got a few minutes. Yeah, I could ask. Okay.
Bye, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks for joining. I guess if there's one more question, we could take one more question and then we'll wrap it up. I put a link in the chat to our Lakehead Year of Climate Action Symposium, which is May 2nd, 2 to 4:30. So I encourage you to register if you're interested in these types of conversations. That's really going to be where we reflect on the Year of Climate Action, what we accomplished and where we want to go from here. Would really love to hear your voice in that. So please register if you're available.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. This was good, and I hope people got some information out of this. Take care.
Thanks so much, Hugh. Happy birthday.